Good morning, team. We are here for our round 7 update in the NBL, and it was a pretty interesting one. We had some really good scores, especially from some of our cheapies and our money makers. Like Hickey went nuts, Kareem Lopez, the dig grade, and even Menenga stepped up after trading him, of course. But a 438 from my side into in 21 spots to 620 in our season rank, and a couple of things that could have pushed us a little bit higher into that top 500 in my captaincy choice, and playing the captaincy roulette unfortunately didn't work. And it's just very clear that Parker Jackson Cartwright is the most consistent guy that can score big in this league. It's very rare that you'll see him go under 30 basically in this one, and he has the odd really good score, a couple of those 50s at the beginning of the year, and Cooks has that slightly higher ceiling at times, as you can tell with his 59 the other week. But the minutes, the rotations from Gorge, I can't get around that team, the Kings. And he thought that, with Xavier, there are going to be games because of those minutes where he just doesn't hit the heights. And unfortunately, that one was this week. But 620, as I said, is this season rank, 438 the score. And we move on into this week. But one thing I haven't looked at in a little bit for you guys is the Podmasters League there, coming 7th out of 29 myself. Shout out to Matt, Troy, and Mark, all in the top 200 without, having a guy in the Podcasters League there that is right in the hunt in that top 50 for that overall position. And personally, looking at the total score differences, I'm just a tick outside 100 points away from 128th overall. So a couple of good weeks there can really change things around and put you in good spots there. If you're looking at my JBFA crews, so we have the 1, 2, 3 there. I'm coming second in 2 of them and first in that last one there, and getting wins across the 3 there with the 438 holding up steady. But a shout out to Jared, who's in first in that one, Ryan in 3rd, David in 4th, Mark in 5th. And then a shout out to John in 1st, Reese in 3rd, Sam in 4th, and Michael in 5th as well. And JBFA Crew 3, myself in 1st with Jackie, Corey, Ali, and also Tyler in that top 5 there. So good to see for those guys in that awesome spot. So looking into my results there and how things panned out, I was very happy and was very content with bringing in Kareem Lopez. And obviously with some of the injury news that came out as well, he was definitely going to be a guy that was going to get good minutes, and we saw what he was able to do, especially in that second game of the last double in round 6. And I just thought, the talent that he showed in that one had to be put on display, and he really showed that in both games, but especially in game 2 with his blocks and just his ability to do it across the board. And I think at one stage he had 36, 37 points, SuperCoach points, with only 2 field goals attempted, and plenty of obviously free throws in there as well. So an incredible couple of games from him, and he went up 70k, which was awesome. Will Hickey went up 42k as well into a 283 number, which is great. So 2 awesome price jumps from a couple of my players, and then Ben Henschel with 42.7k going up, and is obviously owned by a large sum of players there, 51%. So still only half the league has him, and then Hickey will be a little bit less than that, 25%. And then Lopez, I didn't see a lot of people bring him in, but he's in only 5% of the team. So that 70k jump on the rest of the pack, I think, is going to be really cool. And if we are looking at break evens this week, Lopez is minus 18 on the single. If he can get anywhere near that 23, and then he has a couple of doubles, in round 10 and beyond, he's going to be really fun to own, along with Henschel, obviously 2 really good purchases if you don't own them into this week, but most people will have Henschel. The thing with Lopez is if you're trading guys that aren't on the doubles anymore, so your New Zealand guys, just say you had PJC and Mooney, and then you have Cooks as well, that there's 3 guys that aren't on a double this week. So you're going to have to make decisions on those players and in what do you what you want to do there. So do you trade in a guy that is only on the single, or do you look for a couple of those guys that are higher price that are on the doubles? But we'll get into the potential buys in a little bit. Those break evens from those 2 is awesomely low. Same with Hickey at -4, just a crazy guy to be having in your side from this point onwards. But for me, unfortunately, Webster, the trade in that I was just looking for a starter in that spot, and to be honest, I could have ended up just picking Malik Lewis that I was looking at in that forward spot and just played Henschel instead in the starting guard. But went with Webster. Obviously coming off an injury is probably something, again, that I should be putting more of an emphasis on. And then he didn't end up starting, so I was hoping that, they were just going to keep their starting positions that they had in the round before, and he would still play the good minutes. But especially that second game, unfortunately only the 5 points there and a very low minute game compared to that first, and it just wasn't going his way with guys like Pepper doing incredible work in that second game. That's for sure there. So yeah, interesting how that one played out, and they obviously didn't have too fun of a game in that second one, losing by 24 to Sem. So yeah, minutes were fairly low. But across the board there, most of my guys doing some good work. I missed out on 26 points from captaining Cooks instead of Cartwright. So that was a 460 odd that would have been helpful. But really, really happy with my bench, and even Angus Glover getting 31 there and going up a little bit of cash as well for me, up 5.5 there, and keeps his break even fairly low with that higher second game as well. And that's the thing you need to look at, guys, is that second game, and that's what creates such low break evens. And that's why Henschel's is at 6, because he's still got that big game, the first one in there. But that actually comes out of his break even because he has a double coming up. So it just keeps the most previous score in there, and then adds the next 2 coming up for that break even number. Which is why Jack White's is really high at 81, because that second game for him was really low compared to that first one there. Hurd as well, his break-even sits a little bit higher because of that second game of the week, and very much the same with Webster compared to his 19. And Jackson Cartwright at 43, so pretty well fine on there, and I think he'll stick around that similar price for a while. But this week, it becomes a little bit difficult in my opinion, because there's a lot of guys that are at a decent price that have doubles this week that probably aren't, they're very risky because they haven't been playing very well at all. If you're looking at the Perth guys, Keanu Pinder had a 38 in his double. You had Doolittle with a 50, but he's coming off a 16 in that second game after a 34 in that first one. So he's not playing his best after having that stretch of 40s. We know Pinder's a little bit all over the shop. Magnay missed that second game. You got Milton Doyle. You got Jordan Crawford, who, especially Milton Doyle, isn't playing very well at all in his last bunch of games after having a really solid start to the year, shooting the basketball. He has really fallen off, and that field goal percentage is down the toilet, down the dumps, that's for sure. Crawford's, having up and down style, types of weeks, that's for sure. With Sam, there's a little bit of talk that Walton Jr. might be returning. I have a lot of interest in Sobey after that really good week. Just didn't have enough cash. I wanted to get Tim this week, but sat about 35 to 40k short, which wasn't obviously close to him, but that would have been the pick that I would have wanted at the guard spot. Just you can't win them all with price, that's for sure. And then New Zealand move on to a couple of weeks of singles before they get back into a doubles run. From Melbourne, you're not going to be wanting any of their guards, so that guard spot does sound a little bit more troublesome than the forwards and the centre spot. You can look to teams like Brisbane, who from round 9, they get their first double of the year, which is crazy, and back into a single, but then plenty of doubles in a row. So do you go for Harrison a week early, and build up one of those guys that has the double plus your Perth guys, and then you can get another couple in round 9, whether it be Brisbane guys or if the Perth guys step up a bit to get another double. Another couple of doubles for round 9. So Harrison could be the early play if you've got a lot of the other guys and you want to use that money this week to get someone to help you, score well this week on that single, but into some really good double games from there. So there's a few question marks. The Sem guys, obviously with Sobey, I think if Walton Jr. at least for one of those games is out, he's very, very likely to be in my side this week for Webster. That's where I'm looking at the moment. Just that break even doesn't look nice. If he's playing bench, which I think they will, with Henschel and Pepper. Obviously, he'll have more time to recover from his injury that he came into the game with, the week with. But it's going to be a very, very interesting week, that is for sure. So Cooks will be the one to go, I think likely. If you're looking at Cooks and Jackson Cartwright, I personally think Cooks is the one to sell. The New Zealand boys have a little bit more of a better run following the next 2 singles, which the Kings have another couple of singles as well into one double, whereas New Zealand have the 3 in a row. And I do think, you've got Jackson Cartwright in there, just much more consistent, and you can comfortably play him on singles and know what his role is. And especially against, Tassie, who have been struggling as well. I think he can score well in that fixture and become into a nice little run of doubles following that. So he will be the one I will continue with. And I do think the guard spot is a little bit tough at the moment with all of those injuries that we're seeing there. So that's where Hickey is so important in that spot right now. But let's just say Cooks is a guy that moves out of your side. White, Lopez, and Henschel. Well, White, you're going to be holding off on buying. I think at this point, you hold him in your side. Lopez, you can buy. Make sure you buy Henschel as well. But Cooksy, I still do think that Doolittle is the play. Obviously at 335 there. If we just do our little filter there, as I mentioned with Brisbane, the only one I think you target is in that center spot with Harrison. And if we're looking just for the guys on doubles this week, so we go Melbourne there, we go for Perth, we go for Sem, and we go for Tassie across that forward spot. And if we're just looking at a straight average there, Hurt's still a really nice guy you can own for the 1 week here, and then I think you'll sell him following that. But if you're getting someone to set yourself up for the lot of doubles, the 4 doubles in a row that they still have here at Perth, then Doolittle is that play at 335. You're getting him at a little bit more of a discount to what he was a couple of weeks ago with that lower score. He obviously does have a bit of a higher break even, which you'll see here pops in at a 75, but he has the ability to be able to hit that number, which is very, very helpful obviously there. So Doolittle, a really fun one. I think he's going to be one of the better plays of the week from the Perth side, who has some type of consistency, unlike that of Pinder, who is coming off 219s basically. So loses $700 bucks. He comes in with a 77 break even as well. I would definitely trust Doolittle before I would trust Keanu Pinder, but they're both options in their own right. Will Magnay, if he's back fit, he obviously picked up a 30, but he came into that second game having to pass the fitness test and didn't. And obviously what we've seen with injuries in recent history, that's going to be a worry for your sides as well. Blake Lewis will continue to make a little bit more cash. You've got Almanzo, went up 11k in that cheaper slot there, but see, it very quickly moves down into the mid-teens averages from those guys. With Winlow obviously just being in and out with injury, there's not too many forwards that you want to be looking at this time. So that's where I think Doolittle really stands out in that scenario there. And if you're looking to potential cash cows, it's pretty low down there. You got Krislovic, who ended up playing obviously good minutes in that second one and ended up with a good score there with Magnay being out. If you scroll down, he did end up scoring 22 and 19, so he still got the minutes even with Magnay there in that first game, and then picked up 26 in the second. So he has an opportunity here if he can continue with those minutes, but the question is, has he earned those minutes? Are they changing something up and trying something? Or is it, as I said, is it going to continue? Is probably the big question there. And not too many other cheap guys you want to be looking at in that forward slot. So you move to the centers now, and as I said, you want to be looking at really looking forward in the center position. If you're not going for Pinder, then it's going to be very, very hard to select anyone. As I said, just from those teams that have the doubles this week, it's really only Pinder that you want to be looking at, and that's where Hurt just comes in and just fills a really nice role, and that's why he's been great the last 2 weeks so far. Into this third one is to get you in a good spot. But Tyrell Harrison at 333, he ends up a good spot here and can definitely get you a 30 odd this week, whether that's on the bench or in your start if you don't have the doubles available in that center position. And he sets you up for next week. You don't have to make a trade in that spot. And then into the guards spot there, you've obviously got a bunch of these guys that aren't playing at the moment. 2 important cogs in Cotton and Walton Jr. And that's why I said if Walton Jr. doesn't play this week, or at least misses one of those games, it looks like he'll be back for the second one, I still think Sobey is a good pick and is someone that I'll be looking at with a 35 break even across the 2 games, which is good. Milton Doyle has lost 70k on the year now. He comes in with a really, really high break even again at 75, and if he doesn't step up and start shooting the ball well, he will continue to lose money, and you'll have to sell him again next week anyway. So it's definitely a bit of a 1 week play with Doyle. Well under 300k now at 284. Could definitely do a good job for you if he happens to step back up into a nice role there and make some shots, basically. But the minutes are there. He's just not performing at all in currently, unfortunately, there. And then you're looking down, and guys like Henschel and Pepper, if Pepper continues to get the start with Cotton being out, then at 170k, if you've got Henschel, then Pepper could be an option as well. And if he is to start, you could almost get to a point where if you wanted to spend your money elsewhere and get some of the other guys or set up for next week, then Pepper could be your second guard. You got 62 this week. Henschel got 55. I think anything over the 45 mark for a cheap starter would be awesome. 20 low 20s in each of the games. That would be great if you could manage that. So yeah, if you trust that the Pepper's got that role and Webster's still going to play secondary, then that could be what you look at in that scenario. Clint Steindl made some money. Same with Flynn Cameron, that lovely little 20-pointer effort in the back, especially the back half of that game. He continues to make shots, doing great work there. So there's some of the guys that you can look at in those teams on doubles, or do you just look to fix up your bench? But I think what you can fix up your bench with is guys like Lopez, who is much more expensive, over 200k now, but it is Henschel, it is Pepper, and these players there that have an opportunity to get you some good points off the bench, make you some money, and do some good work there. If you're looking at the top averages there, that's where Parker Jackson Cartwright stands out, the 41. Kendrick's had an incredible season, but he's at 35, so there's a big difference there. And Mooney can easily be sold at 340, and you can get anyone basically in that guard spot, which is great. Which is crazy that Matt Mooney's the same price as Cotton, but Cotton's had some low games into some injury games as well. And guys like Keandre Cook from next week could be someone to look at, picking up a 34 there in that single. And yeah, it really opens up and it changes from next week. And a few people will be looking at doing some boosting across round 9 especially. But just make sure if you have your bench kind of set up with some cheaper guys that are making money, then you can just switch, do some makeshift swaps with your starting guys. And if you're holding on to Jackson Cartwright, he could easily be played in that single spot. Not everyone's going to have 5 good doubles. So to get a 30 odd or 40 odd from PJC is going to do the trick. You got, just if he hits that 43, he hits 18 more than my double of Webster anyway. So it's not always going to be perfect. You can say, oh yeah, two games of this guy is going to be great, but how often do they come out and pick up a 14 in one game and a 20 in the other, and it's 34, and it's like, well, PJC just beat that anyway. So they're the things to look at. You could take a punt on Crawford. He picked up 42 across the 2 games. I think Doyle has more of a ceiling, obviously, if he can get his act together, which would be nice. And James Bateman's been scoring well also. So there's a couple of guys from the Brisbane side that could definitely come out and do some great work from next week. Do you jump on them now and try to really load up in your games heading into round 9? Or do you focus on this week and then use those 2 trades or potentially a boost in round 9 to get you to a really good spot? So yeah, just a couple of cheapies. Obviously, Steindl made some money there. He'll continue to do pretty well if he can score 37 every double, including this one as well. And Jackson McCoy at hitting that 27 last week. If you popped him in your side, he's got a negative 20 break even. So if you wanted a cheapie in that guard spot that, yes, doesn't have any doubles for a while, but it looks like he's picked up a bit of a role, and at 118k, if it allows you to do some good work in switching things around in your side and getting some more guns, then that works well. And we know how important money making is, especially in that first half of the season. We're seeing my team especially get into a spot now where, if we look at some of the numbers, we've got 421, a 377 in my starting forwards. Lopez at 214, Henschel's up at 165 and continuing to move. So both those guys will get up higher. I got a gun center at 355 with Aldrich at 176, pretty solid. PJC at 428, Hickey at 283, and then Webster at 205. So my lightest position is the guards, but hopefully over the next few weeks with my bench forwards improving and Hickey going into the 300s, I'll then have 2 guns in that guard spot as well, which is great. And then we're looking at my total team value of 2.75 mil with that extra 30 odd K gets me closer to that 2.8. So let me know in the comments where you're at on team value, and I think it's going to start to really help us over the next 3 rounds. And then we probably peter out a little bit in terms of just pushing for those GBs, and a lot of guys have their role. So unless things change with injuries and the like, we'll see most people get to somewhat near their price point, and you kind of go from there. So thanks for joining me on this one, guys. I hope that helped you with your decisions heading into this week. We see a little bit of a changeover with those New Zealand guys coming off their doubles. So Matt Mooney's probably the play to move on after that lower game in the second one. I think, with his break even being higher, he's the one to move on. PJC is the one to keep. Cooks you can move on from to get another double and go from there. So thanks, guys, for that one. Hope you went well, and we'll see you in the next video.